Okay, guys, it's time to talk about fantasy football's breakout running back. And it did come out of the Houston Texans Chicago game, but it wasn't Dameon Pierce. It was actually Khalil Herbert. Herbert had a monster week 3. And I mean monster. This one blew my doors off whenever I had to look up and see my opponent had 28 points from Khalil Herbert. Great addition by my opponent. Fair game, fair respect to that. But a big beneficiary of David Montgomery missing time. David Montgomery is again sitting out on Thursday. And one has to question, is this a Wally Pipp opportunity? Andrew Hohman, what do you think? Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery, how do you think this is going to play out?
So Khalil Herbert is a great start this week. I think he's an RB1 this week with Montgomery going to be out most likely. That said, I still think Montgomery is the guy moving forward for the Chicago Bears. I think he's still going to be their lead back, regardless of what Khalil Herbert does while he's out. It's a strange situation. It always seems like Khalil Herbert's the better guy when he's in there and gets a chance. And I think part of that is simply because when Montgomery's gone, Khalil Herbert's the guy. He's the only guy left. Whereas when Montgomery's healthy and Khalil Herbert's healthy, they're splitting it, which hurts Montgomery's value.
Well, I doubt that he's going to average 7.3 yards per carry, which he is currently in 2022. But he did average 4.2 last year before he got injured, missed time. David Montgomery reaffirmed his role as the lead back. David Montgomery, though, is dealing with both ankle and knee issues. So it's very plausible that he misses more than just this game. He can miss a couple games. And if Khalil Herbert continues to run at this, I have to think that he would take lead back responsibilities. I have to think that eventually you just kind of have to let the better player play. And I think a lot of us kind of looked at David Montgomery versus Khalil Herbert and have assumed or thought that Khalil Herbert is the better back. Now, I don't know, a new head coach in town, Eberflus, and I assume as a defensive-minded head coach, he's going to try and run something that's a little bit more conservative. That's going to be a benefit to both backs. Andrew Hagenbaugh, would you consider this a backfield that once David Montgomery is back, can sustain 2 running backs?
I think so. And, it all depends on the system, too, that the Chicago Bears run in the future. Like you said, Ju-Ju, if David Montgomery does miss these next couple games and Khalil Herbert does pop off for the games that he does miss, I think you can see a slight change in that offense in that running back position because, you do have to give the possessions to the better player. And we've seen double backfields work pretty well, though. Cleveland's got a great running back system that they use 4 running backs instead of 2. There's systems that it can work. I think Chicago can try and make it work. I mean, you could use Khalil Herbert as kind of like a receiving back and use Montgomery as, an enforcer back where he just pounds the ball through the middle. Kind of like the Browns use Nick Chubb like in that regard, or Kareem Hunt in that regard.
I would counter that just because David Montgomery is more of the receiving back, or at least historically has. Yeah. The last 2 years, Montgomery has had over 40 receptions. He had 42 in 2021 and 54 in 2020. That's probably the biggest debate for the Bears offense because David Montgomery, a bit of a 3-down back, has been able to be used in that 3rd down capacity. And maybe a big reason we're not seeing Herbert as a pass catcher, because he hasn't shown a history of being a pass catcher, is that either he's not equipped in that skill set, or maybe this is another thing we always see with young running backs, pass blocking. You have to go back and look at the tape and see if that is something. And obviously we know Justin Fields is running for his life anyway, so he needs all the quality pass blockers he can find. If Khalil Herbert's not that guy, then he's always going to be at risk of losing snaps, losing possessions to David Montgomery because the coaching staff would trust him more. But again, this is a new coaching staff. This is not Matt Nagy. So they aren't as necessarily tied to David Montgomery if this year should progress and Herbert is just breaking off explosive run after explosive run after explosive run. Now, I will agree with something that Andrew Hohman was saying early on in the recording here, that I do think that Khalil Herbert is a surefire running back 1 play this week. New York Giants, they've been a scrappy defense. They've been a tough defense early on, but I did see some quality runs by Zeke. I did see some quality runs by Pollard this past week. I think that Herbert can at least be a guy that gets over 100 rushing yards this week. I would say if there's a over-under betting line in terms of rushing yards, I would say bet the over on Herbert. I think that he's going to meet that mark. And then if he lands in the end zone, you're talking about a guy that just got you 16 fantasy points, which I think can be a realistic floor for this guy move forward. I think that he has that opportunity to do that in this offense. And I think Justin Fields, as a quarterback who has shown the ability to run, too, only amplifies him in this offense. Andrew Hohman, any other thoughts on the way this backfield is progressing? What about you? Do you think that this split can sustain 2 running backs when both those guys are in there?
It's tough. It really just simply depends on what the coaches decide to do. I mean, look back at week 2. They gave David Montgomery an 80% snap share. It's tough for Khalil Herbert, as good as he can be, to be even a flex worthy player with that low of a snap count. I think he was on the field for 29%. And I mean, it's going to vary week to week, and the Bears coaches are going to ride the hot hand at times. So you may see Khalil Herbert days, you may see Montgomery days. I don't know where it's going to end up. I still think that Montgomery is going to end up being the guy who you'll prefer to own as long as he's healthy.
So you're not selling your David Montgomery stock if someone is offering a trade?
I wouldn't sell low on him. I would hold him. I think he's going to be more valuable as we
What
move
about
on.
selling high on Herbert?
You absolutely could sell high on Herbert right now. I don't know what you think, Hagenbaugh. But I think that you can, if you can get a good solid starter out of him right now, he may just be the guy this week, and that may be it. Maybe Montgomery stays healthy the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board with that. I mean, you could definitely sell Khalil Herbert on a high and, wait on him to sell high, and, you could keep your stock on David Montgomery. I do like that a lot.
Just be careful. Don't get high on your own supply coming off a 30-point week. Sometimes that could be awfully tempting. All right, guys, let us know. Are you struggling with the Bears backfield in the comment section? Let us know if you're struggling with any fantasy football question, because we're happy to help and assist and make sure you win your league. Follow us on social media, like the video, subscribe to our channel. From Ju-Ju and Andrew Hagenbaugh, Andrew Hohman, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.